a recipe for leftover vegetable soup. So I've been playing around with the dishes and I've ended up with some leftover vegetables, which I don't want to put on the compost because they're a little bit too good for the compost. So we're going to make a leftover vegetable soup. So I was making noodles of veg for another dish. So we've got some carrots that I cut in on the mandolin to make noodles of veg. So we've got the trimmings from the carrots, and we did the same with courgettes. So we've got the inside of the courgettes, which are mostly water, bit pappy, for want of a better word, but completely usable. So we'll just chop those up. It's going to cook for, it's not going to be a green soup, so we're not that bothered about it losing any kind of flavour. So everything's going to be cooking for quite a while, so we don't need to preserve any kind of flavour. There's not enough green to kind of make it greeny, but they're too good to go in the compost. I wouldn't know what else to do with them. So that's those in there. The basic bog standard recipe for soup is 350 grams of onions, which are already chopped and in the bottom. That's the weight before I peeled them. And then we've just got and then it's 500 grams of vegetables, which there is 500 grams worth of vegetables. So these are just the ends of the courgettes. They can go in, they're a little bit green, but that green's, I'm not going to faff around just to save that little bit of green and make it nice and vibrant. And then it's 3 stock cubes, 500 milliliters of water. Even though I'm gonna add just slightly bit less water because these are kind of quite soft and mostly just water the inside of the courgette. So I think we'll put in 400 milliliters of water, and then we've got these from the broccoli, which most of the time people are just going to throw away. And the outside is a little bit woody and a little bit unedible. But if you get down to the centre, you're left with essentially what looks like a green wonky carroty type of thing, as long as there's a fly in the kitchen. It's that time of year. So we've got the inside of that can go in as well. You kind of think, oh well, there's not going to be much flavour in there, but there is flavour, and you will kind of tell. So what we just need to do is you just need to go along with your knife and peel along the outside, and you can see the woody bits. Where can we see? So all these bits here are woody, and they're never going to cook down, and you're never going to puree them into a nice thin soup. So we need to remove those, which is just a simple case of going round like that. And I see these fancy blenders and liquidizers on the TV, and they make celery soup, and people don't even chop the celery, and I think what a load of rubbish, because my teeth can chew and chew and chew on the woody parts of celery and never break them down. So I don't think, there's no way that a liquidizer that you buy from QVC will do it either. So those bits are going to go on the compost, but this bit, usable on the inside, tasty. You can actually just have it as a vegetable. What you can do is, if you're having broccoli, you can just cut this bit out, chop it in and cook it with your broccoli, and it tastes just like broccoli, but it's a different kind of flavor, it's a different kind of texture. So that's that whipped off there. You probably think that's a bit of a faff, but I don't. I think that's food that I don't want to waste. So that goes in as well. They can go in the compost. We can even make stock out of those. I will make stock at some stage. And then we need 400 milliliters of water, which I've pre-boiled to speed up the process. So we'll put in 400 milliliters. And we're going to cook with the lid on today because we don't need to preserve any kind of green. So yeah, that's the one. That one on. Lid on. Cook everything until it is nice and tender, and then we're going to puree it down, and we're going to add some stock cubes and add a bit of milk. Oh yeah, so 3 stock cubes is my standard recipe for soup. If it's 500 grams of vegetables, 350 grams worth of onion, 500 milliliters of water, 125 milliliters of full milk. I always use full milk. It's the same price. You get much more flavour and richness from it. And then 3 stock cubes. But we always add 2 stock cubes, and then we taste, puree down, then taste, and then see if we need to add the third. Always remember the golden rule is you can always add a little bit more. Very difficult to kind of take away. So bring that up to the boil, cook it nice and gently, lid on. which we won't get too much evaporation because the steam won't be able to escape, and then we'll come back and we'll pure it down and we'll see how much we've made and see if we need to add a little bit more water, all that kind of stuff. But it will basically be almost a free soup is this one, because it's the waste from other things. So there is a kind of cost in there. Obviously, there's the cost of the onion, and we could have used the carrot for something else. But the broccoli inside and the courgette inside, there's no way we're going to use that for anything else. So it's going to be a really cheap soup, is this one, and kind of like a way of getting almost something for nothing, which I'm all for. So we'll be back when those are tender, and then we'll carry on the pureeing down and all that kind of process. So vegetables are now cooked, and we can now puree them down. I will add, so if I hadn't have got like 500 grams, well, there was about 550 grams. If I've only got like 300 grams of leftover veg, I wouldn't have. What I could do is I could alter the amount of onions, the amount of stock, and all those type of things, or I could have taken some frozen peas out of the freezer and added 200 grams of frozen peas to kind of bulk it out. So, and that would have kind of made a nice green soup. So I would have added them once the vegetables were cooked. I then put it onto a rapid boil, added the peas, and then pureed it down. But it's one of those things. It's whatever vegetables you've got. I've got lots of cores of vegetables. You know, if you've got like a carrot left, a bit of broccoli stalk, maybe just one small bit of broccoli that's a little bit past its best, half courgette. It's one of those type of recipes. It doesn't have to be a fixed amount of onion. I always use I've always got onions, so it's always like 350 grams. So that was a little bit of explanation. So we will puree down with two stock cubes in. As you can see, the courgette kind of goes to nothing like that. So it's very soft. There's loads of water in it. So we might not need to add any more water, but we'll see. We'll see. It's a little bit, courgette's a little bit like, or zucchini, wherever you come from in the world. Courgette's a little bit like pumpkin. There's a lot of water, and it purees down to nothing really. And you get like you have to change the amount of water that you add to pumpkin soups and courgette soups, that type of thing. So puree down, and we'll then have a taste. In fact, we'll move that onto there because the blender's going to want to fall over. Right, so the blender's slightly struggling. Can you see? It's just making a mess of everything. But the blender's slightly struggling, it's not getting it thinner. So we'll add I don't think we need to add any more water, but we'll just add that milk, and then that should be thin enough that it'll puree down quite easily. Go. We'll give it a taste. We'll have a look at the consistency. We could probably thin it down a little bit more. We'll add a bit more water. We'll give it another puree, and then we'll add a little bit more water. I think another 100 millilitres. I'm just boiling the kettle. So another 100 millilitres. We'll give a taste. We'll probably add the stock cube. Yeah, that's a better consistency. I've got my spoon. Yeah, it needs another stock cube. And then we'll use the blender to mix the stock cube in, and then we'll have a cheap soup for next to nothing. There we go. That's lovely, is that? That's absolutely lovely. Thinking about it, this is a technique of using up the bits of vegetables that you've got that are a little bit past their best, and like maybe the vegetables that you've got from the day before, from the Sunday lunch. You've got some carrots left over and a little bit of broccoli. All kind of good way to use those up. And it was something that I was taught in one of the first restaurants that I worked in. And you could be guaranteed that if you ate in that restaurant on a Monday, the soup was vegetable, and it was made from all the leftover vegetables from the Sunday lunch the day before, which is not something you do these days. I mean, the food hygiene people would have a field day with you, but in the past, 20 years ago, that's exactly what you used to do. So, and that has made 1.4 litres, so that is a good four generous portions, possibly 5 portions of soup. I'll have to remember. I can't remember what kind of portions we're going to serve. It's normally 300 millilitres. So yeah, so we've got like 4 really good portions, 5 at a push, of soup made from leftover vegetables that we had knocking around, that we're either just going to go onto the compost or just get thrown away, and we've managed to make a cheap lunch out of that there. And it's also, that's not a bad colour, is it? You know what I mean? You kind of go, the vegetables that went in were a bit boring, but we've got like a nice orangey, rich, delicious soup for next to nothing. That's what you should be doing with your vegetables next time you've got some left over. But there you go, leftover vegetable soup.